I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the regular meeting of the Fairmont City Council, where it's held today, Monday, December 11th, 2017. It's 6 p.m., and we are in the City Hall Council Chambers, and roll call vote, please, Patty.
Humple, or oops. Cyphers.
Present.
Hawkins.
Present.
Hassick. Here. Peters.
Here.
Zarley.
Here.
It's been determined that we have a quorum, and we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. First item is to approve tonight's agenda, and at your seat, there was a 15.8, a labor agreement with the police union, and we'd like to have that as an addition. And also, Mike Shepley, the county assessor, is here, and he will be presenting under recognitions and presentations. So with those two additions, is there please a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Motion offered by Hawkins.
Second.
And second by Cyphers. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Next item is 6.1, the minutes from our last meeting on November 27th that were in your packet. Is there please a motion to approve the minutes as presented in your packet?
So moved.
Motion offered by Peters
Second.
and second by Hassick. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Next item is Mike Shepley.
Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be somewhat of a teacher tonight. I've passed out our slide presentation, and on the screen we'll show a couple of dozen slides, hopefully in a short amount of time. And if you're in the audience, I'm sorry you have to look through me, but if you're really interested, maybe you want to peek around there. One of the goals for tonight is to just kind of educate us all again on the entire process of how the tax amount gets determined that we each pay on our property taxes. We'd like to walk you through some process and timing things and go through some high-level numbers related things to see what kind of trends are happening at a county level. I've got a couple of City of Fairmont slides as well, so you can see what impact things are impacting at the city level. And then many times this time of year, it's there's some exasperation from some in the public, like, what can I do? What is my next steps? Where in the process have I missed the boat? So I'd like to review all of that with you here with this slideshow. Next slide, if you would, please, Troy. There are really three major steps to the property tax process. There are three mailings that taxpayers receive from us. They have three distinct purposes, and there are three action steps associated. The first on the calendar is a valuation notice. That's generally received in April. It's included in the same envelope as you get your tax bill, your tax statement. So you think of one envelope, there's two pieces of paper in there. One is the bill you're going to pay that month, and the other piece of paper is the value being established for next year's taxes. This time of year, people will say, I didn't get my valuation notice, and then we ask, did you open the envelope? No, because my escrow company pays my taxes. So they missed the meeting for the appeal. So it's important to open your mail, obviously. In that valuation notice, if you could click the next slide, please, Troy. Here's an example of one. All three pieces of paper from the county have three steps listed in the upper right-hand corner, step 1, 2, and 3. Step 1 in the whole process is to get a value. Every January, the county assessor has to put a value on every parcel in the county. Can change every year, up or down, or stay the same. 15,000 parcels in the county. Step 2 is the proposed taxes on that value. That is tonight's meeting. A piece of paper just was mailed out in the last couple weeks. You're having a required meeting. That meeting is to talk about the levy, the spending, the budget. It's to gather input from the public on setting that final levy amount. Many people take this time of year to say, hey, my taxes went up, why? My value changed, why? We can answer those questions in the county assessor's office, but we can't do anything about it, right? Because that value was set the previous April, and there was appeal for that, or the previous June when there was a county-based appeal. So this time of year, the only recourse left is to file a tax court petition, and that is the value or classification that is decided by Minnesota Tax Court. If you would, the next slide, please, Troy. Example of the proposed tax statement I was just received, you can see how step number 2, the proposed tax, is highlighted. That's the step that this piece of paper represents. It's got the calculation based on proposed levies from school districts, cities, or townships, and the county. These are the preliminary numbers that have been published. These levies can, from this point, stay the same or go down. They cannot go up past this point. And notice the box under, that's also great under step 3. In the fine print, it says it is too late to appeal your value without going to tax court. People miss that this time of year and come to talk to us anyway about the value. And again, we're happy to talk to anybody, but when they find out they missed the appeal time, then it's, oh, sorry. Next slide, please, Troy. We're all familiar with the property tax statement. You can see how step 3 is highlighted. It's the final phase of the culmination of all the calculation, all the value, all the levy. It's the time that we pay the bills. Next slide, please. Here are the top 10 questions we get this time of year, particularly. So the first one is, I disagree with my value or classification. What can I do? Well, the answer is not a whole lot. April was the time period for appealing. If you were not satisfied at your local Board of Appeal, the county is an option for you. And again, beyond that is Minnesota Tax Court the following April. What can I do? Well, you can start to study. You can come and talk to the assessor. The public has access to Beacon, which a lot of property information is displayed for public consumption. Not every detail is on there because we end up selling subscriptions to, say, banks or appraisers that make money off from the data, so we have a subscription-based level of detail. But all of the publicly available information is available in our office for anybody during office hours at the counter. So you don't have to pay for it, and it's all available. Another question we get is my value changed, why? Every 5 years, the appraisers are required by law to review property. And we ask to review interiors in those 5-year reviews as well. If we aren't allowed inside or can't make connections with an owner, we take our best guess from the street, what the condition and quality of the structure is on the inside, and we come to a value that the homeowner or property owner may or may not agree with. If we haven't been allowed inside, we ask if we can do it now. So yeah, we'll go take a look at properties now. We want the records to be as clean and accurate as we possibly can. Second question, assessor has incorrect information about my property. Well, maybe there have been some changes to your property, or I looked on Beacon, you've got the wrong number of bedrooms or the wrong square footage. Great, we want to know that. We want these records to be as accurate as possible. Third question, my taxes are proposed to jump significantly. And I'm going to show some more slides a little bit about how to piece all of that information together. That is not a simple, easy question always. And I'll show you how complex that calculation is, but we can break it apart and we can give people things that they can do at certain steps. Next one is, what is the correlation between levy changes, which we're talking about tonight, levy, and my proposed property taxes? So sometimes all people see is the bill they pay. Well, there's some relationship to market values, there's some relationships to parts of the calculation, and I want to show some of that tonight as well. Will the proposed taxes change when I get my final bill next April? Possibly, and again, levies can go down or stay the same, but they can't go up from this point. Next slide. Let's break this down. My taxes jump significantly. Why? How do you determine who pays what? And sometimes people want to know the basis for the calculation. There it is in the small print. Notice how it starts with estimated market value, EMV, and ends with the tax paid. In between all of that are the pieces of calculation. Many of those things are set by state or statute. Many things are done outside of your control, our control. It's just things that have been memorialized in statute over the decades. At the beginning, the estimated market value is the assessor's response to what's happening in the market. We have to be at market value on all properties. We're guided by sales ratio studies. Our values have to be between 90 and 105% of actual sale prices. We break down those sales by class, by area, location, on lake, off lake, many different ways to try and determine what's the market telling us. Is the market increasing? Are people paying more for properties than they have been, or less? Exclusions are things like homestead market value credit. There are things like veterans exclusions that reduce taxable market value. There are blind and disabled classes that reduce taxable market value. Class rates are part your responsibility and part what comes before in the calculation. So class rate is tax rate, is levy, what we're talking about tonight, the amount you decide to levy for, and divided by tax capacity, which is market value less exclusion equals tax capacity. We calculate gross tax. There are some credits that reduce gross tax for some taxpayers legislated. For instance, ag credit is just a reduction on gross tax. So when people start comparing their tax to their neighbor's tax, it's a very slippery slope because you're at the end of the calculation. You don't know all those pieces that went into it. Exclusions can be different property to property. Tax credits can be different. Classifications can be different. We have all those details about yours and your neighbor's house at our office. We're happy to walk you through all of those details for your property or your neighbor's property. It's public information. We want you to know what's happening to your property and how it relates to others. I want to walk you through tax burden and can it shift? And the answer is yes, and from a county level that's easy to see. In a city, not so much shifting going on. Let me give to you from a county perspective. Does anybody know 3 or 4 years ago what ag land was selling for, approximately per acre? 10, yeah, I heard 10. Can I hear 11? 11.5. Yeah, that number was pretty big. Now we're seeing sales down in the $8,000 range, and that's a big change. When ag had higher value, their part of the calculation caused them to pay a bigger share of taxes. Now that values are coming down, they're paying less of a share. If they're paying less of a share, somebody has to pick up the difference, correct? That leaves commercial, industrial, that leaves residential as the main categories. So I'll be able to show you how that has shifted. At the same time that shift is going on, taxing jurisdictions have been increasing their levies. The size of the pie has been growing. So it's not the same little pie that we're just cutting up differently. The size of the pie is increasing at the same time. So if you're on, let's say you're on the residential class, you not only saw a shift to you because others were paying less, you saw that pie increase. So you've got two things going on. Many times my neighbor pays only $1, but I pay thousands of dollars in taxes. Why is that so different? And tell me what I can do. What are my options? Next slide, please. Again, the calculation is up on top, but the estimated market value at the beginning of the calculation is the assessor's response to the market. We don't make these values up, but we do have to calculate them. And we do have a basis for doing that. We are accountable to Department of Revenue, who equalizes our values to our counties around us and the state as a whole. We have the most level of detail and the most attention to that for our local jurisdictions, though. We use what's called mass appraisal, which is different than if you were to hire someone to appraise your own property for borrowing or buying or selling. In those cases, those fee appraisers can spend hours on your property and really dial in to the exact number that you could expect for a value. Appraisers and assessors, on the other hand, have to use mass appraisal because we have 15,000 properties and 6 people to do it. So that's a calculation-based exercise, and requires us to be licensed and trained and to keep up our training in order to do that in an expert way. Classification is a big part of the calculation, and we base that on how is the property used. So each parcel has one or more classes to it. Those classes are, for instance, residential or commercial industrial or apartments. Each of those classification has a class rate attached to it. A class rate is legislated. Really interesting difference in class rates. If you were agricultural homestead, your class rate is 0.5% in the calculation. If you are residential homestead, it's 1%. Those are legislated rates. Commercial industrial is 1.5% on the first 150,000 and 2% value over that. So a big difference in class rates, and you put that in the calculation, for the same value, you end up with a lot different tax at the end. Those two are the assessor responding to things about the property or its value. The middle part is your particular situation. As we talked about before, there are exclusions and credits for homestead, veterans, ag credits. This old house is something that has been expired, but you got a reduction in your taxable value for improving your house years ago. Those things all come and go as the legislatures. Seems like they want to get votes certain times, so they do certain things and to appeal to certain classes of folks. But that's you can go talk to your legislators, those who make the laws, and talk to them about that situation. So the assessor and the city, and the school districts and the county have nothing to say about those exclusions and credits. We just administer the law. There's something called tiers, and that's not the crying kind, although it feels like it sometimes. But there are breaks in value where these rates change. Most notably on the agricultural side, if you have multiple parcels and the value adds up each time you add a parcel, the first 1,940,000 is taxed at a 0.5% rate. Over that is 1%. So there are tiers that apply. And then in residential, if your value of your residential home is over 500,000, there's a different tier rate as well. So those are things that are just administered. The last thing, taxing districts levy, and that's why you're here tonight. You'll talk to your constituents more about that. Each taxing jurisdiction is autonomous, so you won't talk about the schools levy tonight. You won't talk about the counties. There are at least 3 meetings this time of year. For a City of Fairmont person, it's the county meeting that was last week. It's tonight's meeting with City of Fairmont, and then whenever your school district, but that's on your notice as well. I don't know what the date is. And then also on your tax bill, you'll see special assessments for your street assessments, recycling, solid waste fees, and ditch. And the assessor doesn't do anything with those either. Okay, Troy. Now I want to give you a big picture from a county perspective on what's been changing. So this is the first part of the calculation, estimated market value. There's that spike in land values I was talking about, how rapidly that went up and how quickly it's coming back down. The red line is residential. If you've, most of us have a house, you can see that that has not increased as much. It's been pretty steady. Next slide. This is comparing taxable market values from the time when agricultural values were at their peak to today. And you can see the slice of the pie that of ag's taxable market values was 79%, and it's currently at 73%. So this is the start of seeing a shift in the taxes. So starting with value, it will end up in taxes. Residential went from 12 to 16%. So res is picking up more as we supposed. Next slide. This is tax capacity, which is the middle part of the calculation. It's the value, estimated market value, less exclusions. times the class rate. So what the assessor does and what the state does to those classes, this ends up at tax capacity. It puts a value or a number on what is taxable, what is the rate going to be applied against. And it's a way of equalizing for our thinking the what's happening for this shift. The red line again is res. You can see that's coming up a little bit more. If we hear people talking about their taxes going up at the county level, we'll say yes. If you're a homeowner, you are seeing that, and here's the proof. And ag, you should be seeing some reductions if spending, the piece of the pie, is not getting. If the whole pie is not getting bigger, you should see these shifts. Okay, Troy. Very busy slide here. Again, this is at the county level. The bars themselves, if you look just at the bars, this shows the different, who's actually paying the tax. So this is collections. This is not, this is the end of the calculation where the source of this money is coming from. And at the county level, way on the left-hand side, you can see res was picking up 30% of all the levies in the county in 2005, and they're down to 24%. Okay, and that's because someone else picked up the difference. You can see the difference was in ag from 36 to 41, 42-ish. And then the lines, if you can pick out the lines in that graph, the top line is the levy amount. Who is what is happening to levies over time? The top line is county. Their levy has gone from $7 million up to 16. Is that pie getting bigger? Yes, that pie is getting much bigger. The second line is schools, all schools together. That pie is getting bigger. The third line is the city of Fairmont. That pie is getting bigger, but not at the same rate as the school and the county. So when you look at your tax bill or your estimate of taxes, there are separate line items on there for how much you're paying to each taxing jurisdiction. It should correlate to what you're seeing the increases being here. Okay. This is City of Fairmont only. This is a breakdown of the last slide we saw, where our taxes being paid from the City of Fairmont's levy. So the City of Fairmont is levying, I think, around 4.7 million, or has, maybe my number might be off a tad. But who's paying that? Basically, residential is almost up to 50% now, where they were 47 before. Commercial industrial, with Job Z expiring, the Hawkeye facility is now expired and is fully taxable. Commercial industrial is picking up a little bit more taxable and paying taxes more. Okay, Troy. And this, you don't have to look at decipher the details of this one, but I wanted you to get a feel for, there are 50 taxing districts in the county, 50, that each set their own levy, their own rate, and tax taxpayers. And you can see the bars are the total tax rate, so including township or city, including county, including schools. Some of the smaller cities have very large levies compared to what who they're able to tax, so their rates are quite high. City of Fairmont is about 2/3 over there, and their tax rate is just a little over 1, I believe. Next slide, Troy. Here is just again when there are changes or you want to know more about your property, these are things that we're able to visit with taxpayers about. When you're trying to compare yours versus your neighbor's, you need to not just look at the bottom line tax, but because of the exclusions, because of tier levels, because of credits, come and talk to us if you're really concerned about that last number. We'll show you how that all is detailed out specifically for your property. There are things that happen at the parcel level. We talked about reappraisal data discoveries. We talked about we'll talk about new construction or demolition. Sometimes we do find data that needs to be improved. We'll be correcting that as we find it. And the market value sometimes is driven by what people are willing to pay for a particular style, for instance. Maybe it's condos or townhomes these last few years that are people are willing to pay more, and two-story homes are out. We'll look at those kind of parcel level changes. There are things at a neighborhood, a city, or a township level that drives value. There are, in city of Fairmont, we found significant strength of value on lakes. And last appraisal, we ended up changing lake values, some up to 20 to 25% increases in 1 year. And that was just, again, in response to what people are buying and selling property for. We're seeing pretty good demand out in the country for good quality acreages. And again, we look at how people are deciding what to pay for those. Is it because it's good for commuting? Is it good because it's on a hard surface road? Is it away from a hog building that they might not appreciate the odors from? So we try and decipher all of that. There are things at the county level we apply to all parcels that have that information. For instance, 3 or 4 years ago now, we've did a study on siding. Not all siding is created equal. If you wanted someone to side your house, you would pay X amount per square foot for vinyl siding, X amount for metal, X amount for the latest and greatest. Well, those kind of costs need to go into our models, and we reflect that on any house that would have that. Livestock structures, grain bins all have a county level factor affecting their value. Again, the state level has class rates, credits, and state general tax. And then there are taxing jurisdiction decisions for spending and service levels that you all decide and build into your levies. Getting close to the end, a couple left. Tell me what I can do. What are my options tonight? It's December. What can we do? The only change to classification or value as it affects what tax you pay next year is Minnesota Tax Court. Minnesota Tax Court is a filing by April 30th that you would have to do on your own. You can represent yourself in small claims court. There is a filing fee for doing that, $160 or $210, depending on who you believe. The court administration says one thing, but the online thing says a little bit less. But you would have to decide, hey, maybe I can go and get my value lowered, and I would feel better, but it's going to cost me X amount, and I'll only gain a smaller amount. You can come and talk to us. We'll help you through what that means and be able to do some, initial direction on how to get that done. The big thing, I think, is if your taxes have gone up by more than 12%, if your taxes have gone up by more than 12%, so on your notice that you just got, there's a projection what your tax amount will change. Check that out, because if it went up more than 10%, there's a 12%, there's a special homestead credit refund that you can apply for and get back up to $1,000 in the year that changed. It'd be worth looking into. That one has no income limit. There's a regular homestead credit that has a household income limit but a bigger max refund. But those things are available for reference and filing online at the Minnesota Department of Revenue website. Next slide. Last slide. Is it fair? What a hard question. That is what we strive for in the assessor's office, fair and equitable. We want valuations, market values to be fair. The administration of all the programs, exclusions, credit, we want to be accurate and up to what the statute says we need to. We want to verify your data. That is correct for your parcel. We really like to see people at our office. We want people to understand. We want things to be accurate. So we just ask, come and talk to us. Call us. Email us. If you went on your parcel on Beacon, you can click on the appraiser's name and send them an email. Do it that way if you want. Try and make it easy for you to get back to us. The spending and service level decisions are what you're here for tonight. So I encourage the public to talk to you, understand what's going on, and provide feedback. And then the last step, we saw that it's Minnesota state legislators that have much input into a big part of the calculation that affects everyone. and you can contact your legislator to propose changes or to understand that better as well. That's all I have. Does anybody have some questions that they'd like more explanation on? How about the public?
I think that was a great explanation. I don't think people generally understand how the whole market value thing works, and everyone just says you raised my taxes, but it has more to do than just raising taxes from our side or the school districts or the counties. It's a lot of valuation.
Sure is.
I do have a quick
Thanks,
comment. Would you say that, or question, would you say that, with the tax shift, the burden shifting from ag land, that really wouldn't affect the city of Fairmont much
Correct.
at all, right?
Yeah, the city of Fairmont is like a 1 or 2% ag tax base, so no, it wouldn't have
Yeah, it wouldn't.
appreciable amount, yep.
Mike, one of the things that we spoke was, that I was surprised to learn is that you don't get homestead credit in Minnesota if your home is valued over 400,000.
Correct.
And I suppose that not up until now, that really hasn't been an issue or concern in Fairmont.
Yeah, we are seeing some residential homesteads get up in those numbers where that homestead market value exclusion, so by the term exclusion means it's going to exclude some value from what you're taxed on, works on a curve. The curve starts at the max amount of exclusion when the value is $76,000. So it's meant to help out people with lower valued homes. As the value increases on that parcel, the exclusion goes down until you get to $413,000 of value where the exclusion is zero. You're taxed on 100% of the market value. So, yep, we're starting to see some of that.
Thank you for your time, Mike.
welcome.
We really
Yeah, anytime.
appreciate that. Thank you. And for your office to be open to people. Thanks for that message. Okay, next item, 8.1. Proclaim January 3rd, 2018 as Joe Schmidt Silent Impact Day, and I have a proclamation that I'd like to read. Whereas Joe Schmidt, an author, award-winning broadcaster, community leader, and inspiring keynote speaker, is coming to Martin County on January 3rd, 2018. And whereas the students of Martin County will have the privilege to be inspired by Joe Schmidt as he speaks to them at their schools. And whereas the families of Martin County will have the opportunity to be inspired to recognize our daily life influence on others around us by the words we say or don't say, the things we do, by Joe Schmidt as he speaks to our hearts in a free community event at the Performing Arts Center at the Fairmont Junior Senior High School. Now therefore I, Deborah J. Foster, by virtue of authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Fairmont, do hereby welcome Joe Schmidt to Martin County and proclaim January 3rd, 2018 as Joe Schmidt Silent Impact Day in the city of Fairmont. And Steph Johnson is here. You just have a couple comments you'd like to make, Steph?
Just really quick, if that's okay. I will pass these out. It's information that's up on the screen about Joe Schmidt. And first, I just want to say thank you so much for reading that proclamation and for welcoming Joe Schmidt to Fairmont. I am so excited. This is actually 2 years in the making that we are bringing him to Fairmont. I had the privilege and the honor to take some students to a youth leadership conference 2 years ago under a grant. It was then Fairmont Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. Now we're Martin County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition and Yoko, and we saw Joe Schmidt. He wrote a book called Silent Impact, and how we can he uses his stories of influence through purpose, persistence, and passion. And what I love about his message is he talks about how we can all influence everyone all around us. And we make the best and biggest impressions with people when we're not trying to be impressive. And I just love the message that he gives to us. It was fun to see the 10 students that I got to bring up to see him interact and listen to Joe. And now, more than ever, I am so excited to be able to bring him to Martin County. He will not only speak to Fairmont High School, which is over 900 students there, but we're also having him speak at Martin County West, and there's over 400 students there and all of their staff. And then Grenada Huntley's Chain and Truman High School and Martin Luther High School, and some of the students at St. Paul's Lutheran High School. So grades 7 through 12 will all get to hear Joe's message in a lyceum, as well as then it's going to be open to the public. So that's what I'm here to tell you about tonight, and I'm so excited to see so many awesome faces here and to be able to spread the news. He will be speaking to our community on Wednesday, January 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at Fairmont High School. And Joe just gives an amazing, wonderful message, and I just hope all of you will take time to come and see him. Our Performing Arts Center, the PAC, holds 1,000 people, so let's pack it tight and get as many people as we can there to see his message. And again, I just want to let you know that this is brought to you by Martin County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, but also partnering together with the Martin County Library. This project is being made possible, and we're helping pay for this with a grant from the Traverse Day Sioux Library System, which is part of the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. And so what was so exciting was to be able to talk with the library, and they're going to have Joe's books available at the library. They also have some great youth meetings that they do at the library, and they're going to give the books to their students that are part of their Read a Latte teen group, which is great. And then Joe will be sending us monthly messages after that, and we'll all be continuing with his message all year long. So thank you for letting me share with this, and thank you so much for the proclamation, and I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday, January 3rd.
Thanks for all you do, Steph.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
No, very
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if I could have the council's permission, I would like to move directly to 15.6. Move it up on the agenda just a little bit because we have quite a few people in attendance here. And you're certainly welcome to sit through our budget process as we go through, but there's a large group of people here who are here for a reason, and we're going to go to it right now. And so, first of all, is that okay, everybody?
Yes.
Good, thank you very much. Okay, so 15.6. And this subject is about naming a Joe Burns trail. And so with that, Troy, would you like to take over?
Evening, Mayor and Council. The city's park board was approached by a couple of residents of Fairmont a month or two ago with a request to have the park board and the city council consider naming one of the trails within the city of Fairmont after Joe Burns. Joe spent a lot of time working on the trails just in the time that I've been here. I know he's been working on them a lot prior to me getting here, and I appreciate his input throughout that. So we went to the park board, looked at some options of trails that could be identified with that naming, and came to a conclusion to looking at the trail that runs from the aquatic park south along Albion all the way down to Interlochen Road near Tammy's Avenue. It goes past Joe's house, and actually there's 2 benches along that trail that have been donated by Joe's family. So the park board has recommended that city council officially name that segment of the trail Joe Burns Trail, and we will come back in the spring and probably have a day when we put up signs for the trail, but we'll get them ordered. And I think Joe was brought to the meeting. I'm not sure if he knew about it or not, but there is a large group in attendance to honor him.
So with that, I would like to know, is there please a motion to approve naming the trail segment from the aquatic park to Interlochen Road, Joe Burns Trail?
So moved.
Motion offered by Zarling and second by Hasek. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. And Mr. Burns, would you like to say anything this is a big surprise to you. I found out from your wife Pat today that you didn't even know that this was going to happen. And my only comment that I'd like to make before Joe comes to the microphone is that every time I see him, he will say to me, Mayor, we have to get this done. And I am just determined, because I think of you all the time and how much this all means to you and the time that you've given And we're grateful, Joe, so thank you.
I think the whole thing started on 9/11. The group of us went out to Blandon and came back and started the trails. The only thing that I'm asked of everybody here is don't let it be a dead end.
Exactly. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
And all your friends that attended here to show their support for you. Thank you to all of you for coming. Okay, we'll go back to the agenda. And so the next item would be 13.1, 2008 miscellaneous licenses. And Mike.
Tonight, the 2017 cigarette, refuse hauling, theater, and taxi cab license all expire on the 31st. In front of you is a list of those that are reapplying. A simple majority, and staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion, please, to approve the 2018 renewals for cigarette, refuse hauling, theater, and taxi licenses as presented?
So moved.
Motion offered by Peters
Second.
and second by Zarling. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. 15.1, call for a public hearing and proposed ordinance 2017-09. Mike.
When the city sells property, it has to do so by ordinance as a public hearing. Joseph and Christina Tate, 1228 North Elm, have made an offer of $1,000 to purchase a vacant lot that we raised a dilapidated property from on 1218 North Elm. Staff's just asking that we set a public hearing for January 8th, 2018 at 5:30 to have the discussion and a public hearing on the sale of that property.
Okay, is there a motion to schedule a public hearing and proposed ordinance 2017-09 for January 8th, 2018 at 5:30 PM here in the City Hall Council chambers?
So move.
Motion offered by Hawkins.
Second.
And second by Hasek. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. 15.2, payable 2018 property tax levy, and we'll start with Mike.
What we generally do is we talk about the entire budget process, and then we'll come back and vote on each one of the resolutions individually. But I'd like to just start by saying, want to thank the council and mayor for helping us establish priorities in our budget process. I think we continue to have a strong financial position within the city because of your guidance and policy direction. On November 18th, Paul sent a budget memo to all of you with a proposed final 2018 budget. He does a great job with that, and we'll go over the budget with all of you in a few minutes. I just want to point out a couple of standout type things when we talk about our budget. We continue to struggle a little bit with deferred capital expenditures. One of the top expenditures in that category would be a new dump truck for $170,000 this year. We have a number of other recreational amenities that are some larger ticket items: the Pioneer Bridge, the Cedar Creek Park Trail Loop, the Adventure Playground. Along those same lines as we're working this year, we're going to go into the design and planning phase of the new Streets and Parks building. That's a $400 price tag just to get that going. We've been setting that money aside each year for the last couple of years. There is a $200,000 from the Streets and Parks each this year. There's a proposed levy increase to set aside $65,000 for fire trucks. Another $50,000 to be set aside for just street maintenance. Those two items alone make up 24% of the levy increase that we're proposing. Our operations are up a little bit higher than normal at 8%, but this is primarily due to our health insurance increases, work comp, some wages, but we've added to the housing demo program, and we've added 2 additional staff to the city staff. On the revenue side of things, our LGA did go up $31,000, and new legislation in 2017 helped stabilize our LGA for the year. I did look at kind of what's going on around the state. According to the Department of Revenue, 173 cities, or 20%, froze or reduced their levy. Another 273 cities, or 32%, increased their levy 0 to 5%. Another 283, or 33%, increased their levy 5 to 10%, and 15% increased it more than 10%. I just want to say I appreciate the mayor and council's guidance and efforts from the management team in the budget process. I think we do hold a pretty hard line in our fiscal activities with the community. And then Paul will walk us through the budget with a short slide presentation. We'll take public comment after that, and then we'll go back after we close the public hearing and go through each resolution one at a time, and we'll have 3 of those. So with that, Mayor, can we open a public
Yes, like at this time, we'd like to open a public hearing. And Paul?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike has gone through some of those major ticket items, some of the things that have changed from prior years to 2018. And what I'll do is kind of go over what those numbers look like when we compare 2018 budget to 2017. And the first slide that we have goes over the changes in our revenues in our general fund. That's our main fund that covers pretty much most all the operations within the city. Mike had mentioned the proposed levy increase. We are proposing a 12.1% levy increase. That amounts to $376,000. You can see that increase to the property taxes in 2018. And for local government aid, we did see a slight increase in LGA, but the main change there for under state aid is for the Cedar Creek Park Trail. We did receive a grant, or will be receiving a grant for that project of $150,000. So that is included in 2018 under state aid. And then under transfers, a couple of things we've changed a little bit in 2018. We increased the amount of the payment in lieu of taxes from the utilities. It's a payment that the public utilities funds have paid the general fund. We are increasing it, or proposing to increase it 6% in 2018. That amounts to $48,000 additional money that will be coming from the electric, water, and sewer funds. It's something that we have not increased for a significant amount of time, so we're recommending to slowly increase that. And the other change is the amount of liquor store funds that we're using this year. With the amount of capital projects, we are looking at using more liquor store funds. So the transfers in from the liquor store fund is going up from $268,000 last year to $538,000 this year to address some of those projects, and we'll have a slide that'll show exactly what those projects will be funding. So our total revenues are up $934,000, or 11% in 2018. The next slide will go over our general fund expenditures. Total expenses are up $1.2 million, or 14% from 2017. I think Mike had touched on some of those things. The majority of that increase is related to our capital projects that we're doing. Total capital projects in the general fund is up $560,000 from 2017, so that's a big portion of that increase. We also are going to be increasing our housing demo program. We had been budgeting $42,000 each year. We increased that up to $75,000, so hopefully we will be able to take down a few more dilapidated houses each year. For the transfers out, it increased from $35,000 to $80,000. That does reflect the change of the fire service agreement that we reached with the townships, and their contributions will increase in 2018. So that money is being transferred into our fire truck debt service fund for future fire truck purchases. If you noticed, our revenues exceeded our expenses in 2018, about $565,000. So the city will be spending reserves to balance our budget. In 2018, it is money that we have been setting aside. The 2 projects that we had set aside money for was for the street and park building. We have about 1.6 million set aside for that project. In the 2018 budget, we'll be spending 400,000 to do some design work for that new building in 2018, with construction planned in 2019. And also, the last couple years, we've been setting aside money on some trail projects. We've got 180,000 that we will be spending from reserves for the Cedar Creek Park Trail. So those funds have been set aside in reserves. We'll be using those to balance our budget in 2018. The next slide is our special revenue funds. For our special revenue funds is our Economic Development Fund. It covers Southern Minnesota Education Campus, our Airport Fund, and Lake Restoration Fund. And so the main changes in revenues from 2018, you can see it's up significantly, 856,000. 600,000 of that is for a new fund that we established, our local option sales tax fund. And so that is a projection that we received from the state, coming from retail sales from Fairmont. So that's what we're hoping to collect in 2018. I guess we'll get a better idea as we start collecting our local option sales tax here over the next few months. So. And then federal state aid is up in 2018 for our runway, taxiway, and apron crack repair project. We will be getting federal aid for that of $197,000. So that's the reason for the increase in 2018 under federal aid. Everything else and under special revenues remains pretty stable. The next slide is our expenditures under debt service. You see the economic developments in Southern Minnesota Education funds. There really isn't much change at all within our operations for 2018. We do have an increase under the airport for 2018 that reflects that project that I had just gone over, the taxiway apron, runway and apron crack repair project. That's $275,000 in 2018. So total for our special revenue funds expenses are about $200,000 in 2018. Next slide is our debt service funds. Mike had mentioned that we are proposing to increase the levy $65,000 for future fire truck purchases. So that is included under the general tax line. That's a reason for that increase in 2018. And then also we added $50,000 to our debt service levy for street improvements, and that's something that I think we'll need to look at over the next few years, possibly doing $50,000 each year for the next several years to get that built up so we can start tackling some of those streets that definitely need to be looked at. So, and then for tax increment financing, we added a couple of new TIF districts. The last two that we've added was for Fairmont Realty Group. That's the rental housing units that were put up on First and Prairie. And then Ingleside will be a 20-unit expansion of their assisted living facility. So those two projects will be coming on in 2018. Those are a pay-as-you-go TIF project. So as the revenues come in, we pay those right back down, back out to the developer. So on the expense side, you can see that the TIF that we're coming in matches the expenses that are going out for those projects. Our next slide is our capital projects, and this is one of the areas that's driving, the larger increases in our expenses for 2018. Our capital is up $789,000 from 2017. This is a list of capital broken out depending on by our departments, and under general government buildings. We're planning to do some repairs to the senior center building. They'll be doing some roof repairs and a lighting project. Under the library, I believe it's mainly windows and furniture that we'll be replacing at the library. One of the things under the police department, that we're adding in 2018 is for the K-9 program. We'll be adding back that K-9 unit, so that would include the purchase of the K-9 and training for the officer to get trained for that program. That's $30,000 in 2018. We also be purchasing some AEDs, 10 AEDs in 2018. The total cost on that's $20,000. And Mike Hunter and his staff were successful in obtaining a grant. We did get a grant for $10,000, so that'll cover half of the cost of those AEDs.
What is ADD?
Automatic, I'm not sure what is.
Defibrillator.
I'm not sure what the.
Got it. Thank you.
For the fire department, 31,000 is for bunker gear and helmets. Under streets, I think Mike had mentioned the plow is the big cost under that for 170,000, and then 200,000 is for the street and park building design. For the aquatic park, we're looking at refurbishing all of the pool slides there that definitely are probably past time that we put some money into those slides. We haven't had that done since the pool opened in '99, so that is just over 80,000 to kind of refurbish all those pool slides, and hopefully that'll last another 10 years or so. Under Parks and Rec, we've got 50,000 set aside for the Veterans Park resurfacing. $225,000 will go to a bridge for the Pioneer Bridge Trail. $330,000 is for the Cedar Park Trail that'll be the loop that will connect in Cedar Creek Park. We've also got $150,000 set aside for the Adventure Playground, or the all-inclusive playground. And I think we have some members here tonight from that group, and they've been doing an excellent job of fundraising. And I heard from Sarah Pierce today that they're over $100,000 now that they've collected. So with the city's portion, that would put us at $250,000. I think the total project that we're looking at is $450,000. So we have a ways to go, but we've made, I think, great progress, or that committee has made great progress in fundraising for that. And then $200,000 is the park share for the street and park building. That's going to be split 50-50 between the streets and Parks and Rec. On the next slide is kind of a summary of the net income that we have projected for 2018 for the liquor store, and then some of those projects that we'll be funding out of the liquor store funds. The $40,000 is going to be transferred to SMECT for operations. That's something that we do each year. We've mentioned quite a few of these projects, these park trail projects, but a lot of the larger parks and rec projects will be coming out of the liquor store funds in 2018. And one other change because of the number of projects that we're getting for Parks and Rec, and the amount that we're spending out of our liquor store funds, we're looking at shifting the housing demo program is something that we have historically paid out of the liquor store funds. We have shifted that to the general fund, and actually we're looking at increasing property taxes to cover that program. It's something that I think the council will be looking at doing continually, in the next several years. So it's one of those things that we have to look at where we want to fund that program out of, if it's liquor store funds or through property taxes. But we have moved it out of the liquor store fund in 2018. So with all the projects that we have outlined, we are drawing down our reserves a little bit, 61,000 out of the liquor store funds. We have about 1.7 million in funds right now, so we have a good amount sitting in reserves. It's just something we'll have to keep an eye on when we're looking at these larger projects, and maybe phasing some of these projects out a little bit. So And when we get down to our property tax levy, the 12.1% levy increase that we're recommending is $488,000 in 2018. Some of that is for debt service, the $50,000 that we had talked about going to street improvements. That's the increase in the debt service levy. The other $438,000 would be used for operations. And Mike Shepley did a pretty good explanation on market values and the impact of taxes. In the city's case, the 12.1% levy increase amounts to a 10% property tax increase. So if you were to use your 2017 market value and computed what the tax impact is off of that value using 2018's property tax rate, it would come out to be right at 10%. And so we put together some scenarios on residential and commercial property to give an idea of, what kind of impact that would be for property taxpayers within the city. And this is only the city's tax portion. This does not include the county or the school or your overall tax bill, but just the city's portion. And so for a residential property at $95,000, citizens would be paying an extra $47.80 per year. And on the commercial industrial properties, you're based upon a $500,000 market value, the increased property taxes would be about $465 per year. So it kind of gives you an idea of what the actual 10% property tax impact means to the citizens. So. And actually, we can. This is a little slide. This is a slide we normally put together or put in for showing what the proposed tax statement is, and Mike did a pretty good job of going over those. So I think I'll skip over that slide. So for our enterprise funds, we have a number of enterprise funds. The two largest funds that we have are our stormwater and liquor store fund. We aren't recommending any changes to our stormwater rates or revenues. Are flat, up $200,000 in 2018. The big increase in our maintenance under the maintenance expense is for Canyon Drive. We have $600,000 to look at finishing that outlet and help alleviate some of the drainage issues that we have in that neighborhood. So that's the big increase on the expense side for 2018. And so we'll be spending down some stormwater reserves in 2018, about $550,000. For our liquor store, we're budgeting revenues up about 1.6% in 2018. If we look back at the last 5 years, over the last 5 years, so we've seen sales growth of about 2.5% each year. So liquor store has continually done a good job, and Tom Donnelly is a liquor store manager, does a great job managing the store. So I think we'll continue to see sales growth within our liquor store fund. And for operations, we saw a little bit of increase that we budgeted for being open on Sundays. The majority of our increase in our operations is from that change. And so with the transfers out, the $578,000 that will be transferring out for a lot of those park and rec improvement capital projects, we show that we'll be spending reserves of about $61,000 in 2018. And the enterprise, the last of our enterprise funds, these are our public utilities funds that are overlooked by the Public Utilities Commission. The Public Utilities Commission met on November 28th to adopt or recommend approval of the 2018 budget. And so this is the budget that they are recommending to approve for 2018. For the electric and sewer departments, we have a good cash financial position in both of those funds. And so we're not recommending any increase in the electric and wastewater rates for 2018. We are recommending a slight increase to the water rates in 2018 of 3%. And so you can see the increase in revenue is mainly from that rate increase that we're proposing, the 3% increase in 2018. One of the drivers for this increase in the water side is our chemical costs. With the potential of having to blend water and using harder water, our chemical costs were quite a bit higher in 2017, and so we're putting a little bit in that budget to potentially to have it there in case we need it if we ever have to blend again. And also for the life cycle cost of our carbon activated filters, originally we were estimating that there'd be about 10 years. They're only lasting about 5 years, so the replacement of the filter media is having to be done a little bit sooner than expected, so we've increased the chemical cost to kind of cover that cost too. So the impact, the next slide will show the impact.
I have a good question. Electric, water, sewers are, you're showing net income and all those, although water because of the rate increase. Do we have fund balances in those, reserve balances in each of those accounts?
We do have reserves in all three of them. Right now, we have adequate reserves in water and sewer to meet our targeted minimum fund balances. We have a fund balance policy that says that we have to have 25% of the next year's operations. And so we've met that under water and sewer. We were quite a bit below that target level in electric. Over the last several years, we've made strides to get that closer to that target level. Within the next 2-3 years, we should be at that level under all three of our enterprise funds.
So we're kind of at the minimum required balance. We're not having excess in revenues or excess in reserves.
We're right at our target minimum under water and sewer, and we're just a little bit under or below under electric.
Okay, thank you.
And so the sample utility bill that we put together looks at a residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours and 1,000 cubic feet. When we look at that impact, it would be to our rate payers, it's about $2.06 per month, just under 1% increase in 2018. So that's all I have. I think we can open it up for questions.
Okay.
And open up to the public for questions too. So.
So at this time, in our public hearing, if there's anyone that would like to address the council, you can come to the podium and say your name and your address, and we'll go from there. Is there anyone that would like to address the council at this time? Okay, hearing none. Mike, do you have anything you'd like to say? Any more during the public hearing?
No, I think Paul pretty much summed it up, and we can just answer specific questions as we walk through the resolutions.
Okay.
I guess I would say one thing. When we say we're using some reserves from our liquor store fund, it's always kind of been a one-time project and not to backfill our general fund and offset property taxes. And the last few years we put $200,000 aside. Now we're spending more of that, and we always kind of want to save that for the next big thing. So, we just remember that as we start moving into those reserves just a little bit. I'm always trying to kind of leery of that. And the last thing would be the legislature allowed Sunday liquor sales. And a lot of us were fearful of that from the standpoint that it's just kind of opening the door to, okay, grocery stores now let us sell strong beer and wine, and then pretty soon the erosion of those liquor store revenues to help us. So it's not something that we can count on as much as we used to. I see some changes coming this way, so I just want to point that out, that the those funds might not be the way they are forever, so we should save them for the next big thing.
Okay, thank you. Do I close the public hearing now?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, thank you. Motion offered by Zarling and second by Peters. Is there any further discussion on closing the public hearing? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. So we'll now move on to 15.2, and payable 2018 property tax levy. And it would be to adopt resolution number 2017-41, adopting the 2018 property tax levy and ordering its certification to the Martin County Auditor by December 29th, 2017. Is there please a motion to approve this resolution?
So move.
Motion offered by Hawkins
Second.
and second by Cyphers. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? If not, a roll call vote, please, Patty.
Cyphers?
Yes.
Hassick?
Yes.
Hawkins?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Zarling?
Yes.
The resolution is passed. Next one, 15.3, the 2018 budget. Is there please a motion to approve Resolution 2017-42, adopting the 2018 budget as presented?
So moved.
Motion offered by Zarling,
Second.
second by Hawkins. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? If not, a roll call vote, please, Patty.
Hassick?
Yes.
Hawkins?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Zarling?
Yes.
Cyphers?
Yes.
Resolution passed. 15.4, proprietary fund budgets. And Paul, anything else you'd like to add about that one?
No, we're just recommending the 3% rate increase for water. That we'll be bringing that back. That's set by ordinance, so the second meeting in January is normally when we approve those rate increases. So.
Okay. And that is carefully watched by your commission, the Public Utilities Commission. They review all of that quite often, don't they?
Yes, they kind of hold our feet to the fire.
Good, that's good.
On our rates, and we try to keep it as low as possible. So.
Good, thank you. Is there please a motion to approve resolution number 2017-43, approving the 2018 proprietary fund budgets as attached?
I'll make the move, or motion, excuse me.
Second.
Motion offered by Hassick and second by Zarling. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? If not, a roll call vote, please, Patty.
Hawkins?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Zarling?
Yes.
Cyphers?
Yes.
Hassick?
Yes.
The resolution has passed. 15.5, MnDOT Delegated Contract Process DCP Agreement. And Troy?
Give me a second, please.
Okay, sure. You can have all the time you want. Troy.
The MnDOT has a delegated contracting process which allows the federal funds to pass through MnDOT and get to the city of Fairmont, such as in Margaret Street, where we're receiving some federal funds, and we'll also be receiving some federal funds when we do the trail north out to the hotels. This agreement is just one that MnDOT's requesting the city to update to make sure this process goes smoothly. It really just allows us to, or allows MnDOT to pass those federal funds through to the city. So be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Troy?
Did you read that whole thing?
Quickly.
Good grief, that's a lot of stuff.
Stuff. Is there please a motion to approve the mayor and the city clerk to sign the MnDOT DCP agreement number 1029945?
So moved.
Second?
Motion offered by Peters and second by Hassick. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? If not, roll call vote, please, Patty.
Peters?
Yes.
Zarling?
Yes.
Cyphers?
Yes.
Hassick?
Yes.
Hawkins?
Yes.
Resolution is passed. 15.7, city personnel policy update. And Mike?
Our Fairmont city personnel policies were developed in the mid-'80s, so we're sorely in need of updating. And so over the past 18 months, management staff has worked with HR advisors to update the policies to bring them into conformance with current state and federal law. These policies govern the activities and operations of all city employees not covered by union contracts or where those union contracts are silent. The purpose of the policies are to facilitate efficient service and establish a fair and equitable system of personnel administration. Each employee within the city of Fairmont will be provided with a copy of these personnel policies and the city's organizational chart, and will be asked to sign that they do have them and have looked them over, and we'll update those as we go. It's a document that continually evolves, and this one's going to evolve a little quicker over time than the last one, maybe. So with that, we just ask for your approval.
Is there a motion, please, to adopt the updated personnel policies governing the administration of all personnel employed by the city of Fairmont?
So moved.
Motion offered by Hawkins
Second.
and second by Peters. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. 15.8, LELS labor agreement, Mike.
Last meeting, I asked you to approve contracts with the IEBW, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees asked me, and 29 non-represented employees. LELS need a little more time to discuss some scheduling language. They've finished with that, and they also have approved their new 3-year contract as written, with the same wage increases, 3% in 18, 3.25 in 19, and 3.5 in 2020. And again, they didn't have any other economic considerations within their labor agreement. So other than we did add for all employees across the city this year, 60 calendar day injury on duty pay. And so the union did vote to approve pending council action. So I ask that you also approve the contract with the LELS.
So moved.
Motion offered by Peters,
Second?
second by Zarling, to approve the employment agreement with LELS calling for a 3% wage increase in 2018, 3.25% increase in 2019, and a 3.5% increase in 2020. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. And the last item is number 17, which is a chance for city staff or council members to share something with the council. Is there anyone at this time that would like to share? We'll start with city staff.
I just would share that we heard from some citizens about plowing the bottoms of your driveways, and while we'd love to do that, it's a considerable amount of money and time, but we will be putting together a brief presentation for the council for either the first or second meeting in January. So
I
just-
thought you used to do that.
Well, the Streets and Parks Superintendent said to me the other day, well, when I was shoveling my grandma's driveway one day, and so when he was a little kid, he remembered it, but we haven't done it
I thought
since.
since I've lived in Fairmont, I remember that some road grader had a secondary blade that would drop across my driveway when it.
I think it's been more than 25 years since that happened.
No, it hasn't, but well, I've only lived in town in it 1 year, and I assume it broke. I assume it was probably a disaster.
Yes, it was a very long time ago,
It was roughly 2000.
and
'Cause that's roughly
the
what I
problem
moved it.
is that you drop that blade, number one, everybody wants their street plowed first so they can get out. Well, it not quite doubles the amount of time it takes to clear the streets, first of all. And second of all, every time you drop that and try and get it picked up before you hit the big pile on the end there, it's very hard on the equipment. They break down. It's a constant maintenance headache. And if the council and the citizens of Fairmont are willing to hire a bigger crew with bobcats that want to follow the snowplows around and clean out everybody's driveways, they can sure do that. But the thing that we used to do just wasn't practical. It
So
didn't
there
work
was some type of technology to do it, it just never was very efficient.
It
And I remember
was-
seeing it go by my driveway.
It wasn't very.
It wasn't my intent, sorry.
It wasn't very efficient, and like I say, it was a constant maintenance.
Well, it makes
headache
sense,
because
I just remember it
Yep.
happening in my driveway.
Yep.
I thought it was pretty
And
cool, but-
it was only on the blade. It was not on the
Right.
trucks.
Right, no, it's just,
Right.
on the-
So
yeah.
it was
Exactly.
only on a motor
Yeah, that's right,
grader to
exactly.
boot, so I mean,
So-
it only did some of them.
So it is
Yes.
some of the streets, and so if you weren't on one of the streets where the blade did it, then you got crabby. 'cause
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember the day it happened, it was cool, but it was only a little windrow that high. It wasn't
Yeah.
these big windrows. I just remember it happening. It was one time.
Go ahead.
So my intention was to only say that we're going to look at this a little more in depth so we have some real data to show and those sorts of things. I know that a couple of citizens had called and asked, are you listening? And yes, we are listening, and I'm putting together that data, and we'll put the, Troy and I'll present something at one of the January meetings.
Good, thank you. Council members,
I do. I just wanted to let everybody know that December 21st is Bacon Capital USA at the USA Day at the hockey arena. There's a doubleheader with Marshall, the girls and boys, and they're going to be celebrating everything bacon. They're going to have a skating pig, and they're going to have meat candy and all kinds of celebrating out there at the hockey arena on the 21st. So it'd be fun if we had the whole community come out and support our hockey.
thank you. My only comment is I'd like to make is, and it's about New Year's Eve. And we have Green Plains, Fairmont, and Royalty Rides are teaming up, and they are providing free rides for people that would be in need of a ride home or someplace in all of Martin County. And a huge thank you to these two businesses that are going out of their way to do their very best to keep our city streets safe and to keep people safe. And thank you both to them, and it's going to be throughout Martin County, and they're dedicating their cars and one bus for the evening, and be watching because it states that there will be some publicity coming out very soon, and I believe that there was something in the Sentinel today, an ad in there today publicizing it, and it's just a great message to send. So if you have somebody that's in a situation that is not safe for anybody, this would be a great service, and thank you to Green Plains, Fairmont, and to Royalty Rides.
And I'd also like to say thank you to Joe Burns and all that he's done for the Trail Committee. It's pretty fun sitting up here, and I don't know, I didn't count them all, but all the teachers that have stayed active in our community, it was just amazing to see them all here tonight. And so I just want to say thank you to Joe, and he really does hang out with a motley crew.
Thank you. Anything, Counselor Zarling?
This being the final meeting of 2017 and our last opportunity to gather, I would like to wish my fellow council members, the mayor, city staff, and all of you wonderful folks, not only in the audience here, but at our viewing audience, I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good job.
For all of us. Thanks,
Good
Jim.
idea.
Thanks for being our spokesperson. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Motion offered by Cyphers,
Second?
and was that you? Second by Hawkins. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and this meeting is adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everyone.